There's something about this guy. This guy on his knees at the front of the stage, howling through a mane full of dreadlocks that obscure his face. He's captivating. He's simultaneously vulnerable and intimidating. You don't know how and you don't know why, but you know that he's got some mileage on him. You know that he's seen more of the world than you have, and not all of it has been pleasant. You can tell this is a guy who's had to fight his way through much of his life. You can just tell. I'm a teenager in a band on my first tour of America. We just gotten a massive, ridiculous, overblown major label record deal that was in direct conflict with my do-it-yourself punk rock sensibilities. And we were crisscrossing the country before our album was out. Sometimes we'd play to tens of thousands. Sometimes we were playing to thousands of tens. And I enjoyed both just as much. A moving vehicle becomes my home. I read, I sleep, I listen to music for 23 hours a day. The remaining hours spent on stage, hanging from lighting rigs, screaming my lungs out, doing my best to start something people remember everywhere we go. And it works. I look back at the album we've made, and it has moments I'm extremely proud of, as well as some I'd rather forget. But one thing I knew, we knew, and everyone who saw us knew, is that we were the best live band you'd seen in a long time and the best live band you'd see for a while. When we played on a bill before a much bigger group, I made sure that by the time we were done, they knew, and the audience knew, that we weren't opening for them. They were closing for us. I would literally bleed to make the show happen. If there were 2 people or 200 or 2,000 people in a room, I would make sure that they were mine, all mine for that hour. Having lived on a steady diet of Henry Rollins and Public Enemy for the past several years, I'm overflowing with punk rock principles and earnest integrity. I'm a dedicated vegan, and my tour diet becomes Denny's house salads and white toast. I become anemic, I get head rushes, and when my tour manager suggests supplements and vitamins and protein shakes, I tell him I'm punking it out. I don't need any special treatment. I carry gear that I don't have to carry, so the people around me don't think that I feel like the job of frontman makes me any different or better from anyone else that are part of the shows we play. I tell everyone from audience members to the girl working the coat check to bouncers to sound men and the other band members and crew that we're all an equal part of making this night what it is. I shake hands with every fan, sign every piece of merchandise, put Kids Without Money on guest lists, learn how to settle and cash out at venues at the end of the night in as much of a do-it-yourself manner as possible. In my young mind, I'm writing my own version of Henry Rollins' Get in the Van. In my young mind, Chuck D approves of everything I do. One way I ensure my punk rock cred is solidified is by making sure that I support the opening band at all of our shows. I make sure that I'm around. I encourage whoever else is there to check them out. I buy their shirts, and when they offer me CDs to pass on to our record label or our management, I insist on paying, saying that I'm not going to take food off their table or the shirt off their back. Here's the thing, though. Ambitiously youthful punk rock work ethic and steadfast principles aside, the vast majority of the bands that are opening for us, they weren't all that memorable or great. To this day, despite my earnest punk rock manifesto of equality, non-pretense, and anti-egoism, I remember very few of them. But this is a guy I won't forget. This guy who is on his knees at the front of the stage on a sweltering hot night in Phoenix, Arizona, is for some reason that I can't really figure out someone I'll always remember. Not that much later, my manager pops on some music in the car as we're driving to see Incubus play. We're really excited about this, he says. What do you think? I stop on one song. First, because it reminds me of Depeche Mode, and I can't place which song, but then I listen over and over again. It's a song that I wish I'd written, a song that says everything I've been trying to say, a song that captures a sense of hopelessness that we all meet as we're nearing adulthood, and one that will, as these things do, return to plague us periodically throughout our lives. This song heals me, as it puts into words exactly how I'd felt countless times. It articulates how I feel before I knew I felt that way. Hearing these words come through the speakers, in its own way, is as valuable as if I'd said them myself to a therapist. It's cathartic, it's freeing, and I can't stop listening to this song. This is going to be huge, I say to my manager. I make him play the song all the way to the show and all the way back. Yeah, ever since they got their new singer, things have really started to click for this band, my manager tells me. Months later, I'm in New York City, and that band, who we share management with, is there too. Our manager and the head of our record label have decided to treat us to a night at the strip club. Really, they were treating themselves. We are all painfully young. And as old rich men fished never-ending supplies of $20 bills out of pockets and off of bulging money clips, were all more than a little out of our element. But the singer of the band, whose demo CD I've now worn out, is introduced to me. He comes up to me and says, "Hey, I don't know if you remember, but a little while ago, I opened for you with my old band in Arizona." Mentally, I shear away a tangle of matted hair and realize this guy standing in front of me is that same guy, that same intimidatingly arresting singer who transfixed a room full of people, myself included, in Phoenix. Wait, I say, wait, that was you? You were amazing, and wow, what a small world. He'd been recruited into this band, whose name kept changing, by the same A&R guy that had signed me when I was a teenager, and we shared management, and we'd played together. Like I said, it was a small world. He was warm, he was funny, and he was friendly, and I liked him even more when I noticed that he kept a respectful distance from the dancers at the club because of the woman he was committed to. "Yeah," he said, "you were great too. We're hoping that we can be where your band is pretty soon." "Dude, that one song," I reply. "I mean, it's going to happen. I love all the songs on your demo, but that one song kind of reminds me of Depeche Mode. The one about how in the end, everything you've worked for doesn't matter. That song's amazing," I tell him. He is genuinely elated that I think it sounds like Depeche Mode. "Dude, I've always wanted to be in that band. I'm glad you caught that. I'm Chester, by the way, and I can't wait to play some shows together." We never did play shows together. Our record label was swallowed up by some multinational corporation, and my ridiculous over-the-top record deal, which had offended my steel-hearted resolve to be the ultimate in anti-establishment punk rock street cred, seemed a lifetime away when I delivered a pizza to the New York City recording studio where I'd recorded my album a while back. In hindsight, what with its propensity for being 2020, all the money in tour buses and roadies didn't seem like that bad of an option compared to my burnt-out 10-year-old Mercury Sable and the engineers who'd worked for me previously over-tipping me out of pity. That song, though, I was right about that. That really was something. The band debuted at #1. Venues and crowds and radio and video play were unprecedented. They became, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the biggest bands in the world. And then they just became the biggest band in the world. Eventually, I graduated from delivering pizzas to spinning records for a living and somehow managed to weasel my way onto the radio, where my job now was playing Chester's records, each bigger and better than the last. And I love my job. I truly do. It's a dream come true to be able to share music and laughs and conversation with you. Radio is magical, and I thank my lucky stars every time I walk through the studio doors. Occasionally, though, when I cross paths with the band that started life with the name Zero spelled with an X instead of a Z, that was an interesting one. As I see the enormity of the Project Revolution tours and the artistically groundbreaking and genre-shattering collaborations that they do with the likes of Jay-Z and Snoop Dogg and my childhood hero Chuck D of Public Enemy, I stop and I marvel and I think, wow, these guys, they really, really did it. They achieved everything that they wanted to and more. And then they achieved some more. 15 years or so after our initial meeting, I bump into Chester backstage at one of the Buzz Station shows. He's singing with one of his favorite bands, Stone Temple Pilots. I chatted with other members of his main group before, but this was the first time I'd spoken to Chester in all that time, all those years. He remembers me instantly, and he lights up when we talk about how our paths crossed years ago. "Dude, I still want to be in Depeche Mode," he tells me. "Well, I like your chances," I say. "The Stone Temple Pilot thing worked out, so why not? By the way, how's all this going?" He looks at me, and his eyes fills with no small amount of gratitude, and he says, "I'm living the dream." It's not boastful. It's not bragging. It's not ego-driven when he tells me this. It's the recognition of the fact that the stars, planets, heaven, and earth have aligned, and he's gotten everything that he ever wanted. Now the guy who literally had it all is gone. A voice that reached millions and spoke for them will never be heard again. As I think about the obvious question, how could a man who had so much not want to continue? Like a lot of people, I'm saddened and I'm sickened that this happened. I'm filled with sorrow for his friends, his band, and most importantly, his family, especially his 6 children. And you know, I saw it in his eyes. He loved what he did. He was filled with gratitude for all of it. As people mourn in disbelief and protest that they don't understand how he could have made this terrible, foolish choice when he literally had the world at his feet, I think that, well, it's not like he didn't have enough. It's not like he didn't have the things that on paper would have made him happy. What I think is that these things aren't that simple. If you or anyone you know is going through something like this, chances are people won't understand because they can't understand the way they can't understand what Chester chose to do. So please, please, I beg you, please talk to someone who will understand. Call 800-273-8255. 800-273-8255. Good night, Chester.